Somebody call an ambulance because there's been a murder. I bet that's a great way to start the video. The YouTube algorithm's gonna be like, what the hell's going on here? People! I've been called out by Capital Games, and you know what? Rightfully so. Gary, come on. Edit me in. Put me in my casket right now. Capital Games has called me out in regards to Shin Hati, as I've been correctly pointed into the correct direction here. Today in this video, we're going to be talking about our initial impression of Shin Hati. Long story short, you got to wait a little bit, but there's some cool little tidbits going on with her right this second. And later on in the video, if you stick around, I think Capital Games kind of tipped their hand on a pretty good estimated date on when we're going to get Baylan Skoll. Spoiler, it's looking like it's probably going to be before the end of October. So the reason to get this bad girl up and running is if you want to get Baylan Skoll unlocked day one. Otherwise, right now, she's not like a bangerific character. Out of like a 1 to 4, I'd probably say she's like a 3, but I think she's going to get so much better. Obviously, when Baylan Skoll comes into the picture, right now, all I can tell you is that Shin is doing some pretty solid damage. Speaking of damage, before we start getting into some gameplay, quickly, let's go over some modding recommendations that we have for Shin, and then we'll start going into our general overview on this character, and then kind of get into the fun tidbits like when Baylan Skoll is likely coming to the game. Are you tired of playing mobile games that are just lacking the content? The triple B Fidelity. Have you heard of my sponsor today called Raid Shadow Legends? Use my link or scan my QR code to play Raid Shadow Legends now! Oh, come on, you know what Raid Shadow Legends is. It's only one of the biggest mobile games of all time. The reviews don't lie. I started a brand new account that I've been playing, and if you check out my second channel, I lay down the groundwork to help you dominate Raid Shadow Legends. You can find me in Raid Shadow Legends under the new account name Targaryen. And feel free to join my legion, the Real Gary Legion. The Asgardians are coming to raid. And from August 21st to November 22nd, players will be able to collect 4 champions. And between now and October 23rd, simply by logging into Raid for 7 days, you'll get the legendary Loki for free, who is low-key pretty amazing. Stay tuned to my second channel where I'm going to be upgrading him very soon. So people, what are you waiting for? Come into Gary's dungeon, join our clan. 2 epic champions when you use my link or scan my QR code. And all this treasure will be waiting for you right up here. We have some modding recommendations coming over from Pimpo, and it's kind of a weird set going on here, but as we're going to discuss, Shin's already got some nice speed attached to her. Great base speed of 176, plus a lot more when she gets critically hit. But we also want to try to avoid her being critically hit, so we want to get some crit avoidance on her. So a crit avoidance arrow is what's being recommended here. We're going to talk a bit about that throughout the video, but we want to really capitalize on the damage, because there's one thing for certain, as I'm seeing right now, before we get into the full picture of Baylan Skoll and Morocco in the near future for the next requirement. Spoiler, I think he's going to be required as the last bit for the Baylan Skoll requirements. As we just saw a moment ago, we got some pretty nice indications of where her damage is going to be. The best summary I can give before we start getting into this a little bit deeper. This reminds me of Padawan Obi-Wan. Remember when Padawan Obi-Wan came out? It's like, the damage, you can see glimpses of it. But then you're like, all right, we got to wait for Queen Amidala. And Queen Amidala comes in, yeah, Padawan Obi-Wan can pretty much nuke entire teams at moments here. So let's go start rolling some gameplay and kind of talk a little bit more about her. So here are kind of like the 4 general things that I see Shin kind of plugging into right now. Obviously, all this is probably kind of meaningless conversation because Baylan's going to be around the corner, but you might not be getting Baylan anytime soon. And one thing I'm going to throw out there, speculation, but just like how we have Bo-Katan Mandalore, her event's been shown up monthly. I predict Baylan Skoll will also be a monthly rerun event. So if you missed it now, I don't think it's going to be like Jar Jar. It's going to be like Cal Kestis was, where who the hell knows when they come back. So that's the good news. If you don't get him now, I think you'll have subsequent months to kind of get in on him. But until Baylan Skoll's in your roster, I think the clearest indicator of using Shin at the moment is in a Seer Junda lineup. And very much so. The developers kind of hinted, yeah, she's kind of great in this as a temporary filler. You know, she's an online force user. She's got some pretty good damage. Even before we were in Grand Arena, you know, we're talking Squad Arena, which, let's be honest, things like Star Killer, things like Malicos, it's really hard for them to shine until they get into the Grand Arena forte that we love them in so much. I saw a few glances
in a General Skywalker battle fighting gas, we were able to get Shin to hit for like 110,000 damage, which is a pretty nice damage to be rocking with. Other opportunities beyond the Synergy thing, which I think is probably going to be the big focus point of using her. The question is going to be, before we move on to the other teams, is Shin going to be better in this team over something like Fulcrum Ahsoka? I need to wait to get in Grand Arena and see, but I would want to guess Fulcrum Ahsoka is probably going to be better, not just because more of you guys have her. I think she's just a better character to have. She feeds off all the buffs, big whirlwind damage that she throws there. But keep in mind, Shin's got an Omicron, and you have no power. And it works with unaligned Force user teams, assuming they're not Galactic Legend or Mercenary. We're going to talk about that Mercenary tag in a moment. When she's inside of that territory war situation, too bad it's not Grand Arena. Let's not harp too much about that. We're going to get so much more speed on her. She's going to get even more max health, more max protection on her allies. She's going to be able to feed huge effects to her light side. She's going to be able to, for when she dies off, all light side enemies are going to be immune to cooldown reduction for 2 turns until Shin Hati is defeated. And then while enemies are inflicted a purge, they have minus 50% critical damage. So throwing this in, for example, a Reva lineup, as we're going to discuss, minus 30 speed. Whenever enemies attack on a turn, Shin's going to get 1 stack of Soldier of Fortune. This is going to be mostly, I think, appreciated down the road. But all I'm saying is right now with the Synergy lineup, I think that's going to be probably your best bet. And just the question is going to be, do you take out Fulcrum Ahsoka? Do you take out Colorado Mask? That's going to be the biggest thing. But I think it's a good spot. But there's also some Inquisitor Synergy baked in with the Purge. Now, it's going to be mostly kind of the build on top of Marok, which we got to wait for his kit reveal to come around the corner. But we've already been told through a little Q&A that he will be an Inquisitor. Question will be, will he fit into a Reva team? Will they do something that keeps him out of a Reva team? Because I think they want to keep him with Baylan Skoll to keep their thematic setting going, potentially. But there is a potential because of all those unique things going on with her synergies with Purge, like we mentioned in that territory where Omicron. So I think Reva's going to be another solid option. Then you have things like Lord Vader. The problem with here, yes, okay, Lord Vader loves his dark side unaligned Force user. She is a dark side unaligned Force user. I just didn't really feel like a crazy benefit with her there. That's the problem with the Lord Vader lineup. You got a lot of options. I wish we had more better ones that could take them a little bit higher. But generally, it feels like you could easily put a character in there that feels like they're just riding the bus. They're piggybacking. They're not really offering much. Shin kind of feels like that. She's got good damage, and the good news is she can kind of be prevented from being critically hit quite a few times, which we'll kind of go over some of the things I like about her kit. So Lord Vader's an opportunity. And I think the fourth option that you're going to have is a Star Killer lineup, potentially. Problem is, if you're using Shin, that means you can't use Mara Jade, which means you're probably not using Palpatine then. And that's the best Star Killer lineup. Not that you can't create another Star Killer lineup. It's just hard to say if it's going to be better. But like hypothetically, we were talking about, maybe a General Kenobi with the Shin and Star Killer and then, Cal Kestis maybe and Darth Vader. That could be maybe a cool looking team that you got going on there, especially if General Kenobi's critical hit immunity. It might be nice. So you got 4 options. Again, largely meaningless, 2-3 years down the road, and Baylan Skoll is going to be a bit more mainstream. You're probably going to keep him with Baylan Skoll and the Mercenaries, which again, we're going to talk more about, but spoiler, not a lot going on with them right now. Shin, let me go over the things I liked about Shin real quick. Number 1, I have eyes on him, feels really good. This ability, it can hit hard at times. I think it's going to hit even harder. I'm expecting, again, Padawan, Obi-Wan Kenobi damage when we're placed in the right setting. Just like Obi-Wan wasn't really consistently amazing of damage before Queen Amidala became really darn good at Queen Amidala. I think we could assume the same thing here with Baylan Skoll around the corner, but it's got a great offense sound, it's got a great vulnerable, and the situation where they're resisting these effects, she's able to build up her critical avoidance. And we're going to bring up briefly why that's important. And Mercenary allies are going to get a nice big boost protection, which we can't really appreciate right now. And if she's got more than 10 stacks of Soldier of Fortune, which we'll talk about and how it's a little wishy-washy right now, she can get 25% Terminator and increase the cooldowns of all enemies by 1. So this is going to be nice. This is going to be probably the best highlight ability that I'm really seeing on her right now. The other abilities, I'm not really appreciating. We'll take it from here. It's got a stun. Okay, the critical damage up is nice, so you can really build up that big damage that you could possibly have. It relies a lot on Purge, relies a lot on higher stacks of Soldier of Fortune, which right now, with the limited testing, it feels like it's kind of hard to build up those stacks a lot faster because let's just get to the biggest problem. It's going to be this unique ability. You have no power. Here's the thing. Number 1, what's really nice, 50% offense. That's a great starting bonus. And I think we could assume Baylan's going to have something more with the add on top of that. Datacrons, I know it's your favorite thing. We'll probably add on top of that. She ignores taunt, which is also very nice. You know, there's oftentimes you're stuck behind Queen Amidala as her handmaiden decoy. Annoying, but if she could ignore him, hit someone else with her assumably big damage down the road, kind of a big deal. So I like that a lot. But here's the biggest thing. When she's critically hit, she gains Retribution for 2 turns and 150 speed. That's nice. So right now I have her around 330, but even so, with her base speed of 176, if she's being critically hit, that's a huge speed boost that she's getting, 150. So you're likely going to probably have her around 300 or whatever. She's easily going to get some big speed boost. So she's got a great base speed, even more speed to work with. Really good. And then we have all these Soldier of Fortune effects that she's got in her. When she's at 10 stack, she dispels all debuffs on her, and then she gains 30% max health. All non-tank allies gain stealth, which is great. On 20 stacks or more, she dispels buffs of the target enemy, which was all enemies, and then Shin's gonna get critical immunity, which again, kind of important. Gets health steal up, inflicts defense down on all enemies, but it doesn't really feel that meaningful. It doesn't feel like it gets really meaningful until you get the 35 stacks, where all your mercenary allies gain foresight and offense up. Shin can remove 100% turn meter, and then inflict daze on all enemies, which can't be resisted. That's when it feels like it gets good. The most I've been able to get in my limited testing is I was like 26 after a very, very long battle. Primarily, the biggest issue that she has going on is with her Soldier of Fortune ability, where when she crits or attacks out of turn, she gains 1 stack of Soldier of Fortune. Okay, nice. Just so opening play, you want to do eyes on them. Boom, right off the get-go, you're going to easily get past that 10 threshold, assuming you have some relics on her, because the more relics she has, the more starting stacks of Soldier of Fortune has. But the biggest problem that I'm having right now, even with that critical avoidance arrow that I have, even with some characters where we're trying to minimize critical damage, anytime she's critically hit, she loses 1 stack of Soldier of Fortune. So like I was up against a Commander Luke team, and she'll get blown away. Like just critical damage all around the board. Makes it really hard to maintain a high stack. So you can get up pretty fast, but it's easy to really chop it down right now. And I think that's the problem with critical avoidance. When you're being crit, it feels like a useless status effect. But then when you're not being crit, it's hard to associate. Am I not being critted because of the mod? Am I not being critted because she has ways of ramping up her critical avoidance? So I'm not 100% sure right now if I'm sold on critical avoidance. Maybe offense might be the better way to go. Again, these are just preliminary mod suggestions that I showed earlier on. We gotta wait for Baylan to really kind of have the final piece of the puzzle. But for me, that was the biggest problem. And I don't know if Relic 9 is going to be the solution here. Shin Hati gets 1 stack of Soldier Fortune per Relic and Fire level until the end of the battle, because I think a lot of this is going to be solved with Baylan Skoll, and we're going to talk about some of the Q&A stuff here in a moment. And here, let's just talk about the Mercenaries. Probably the biggest drawback right now, even though the Mercenary tag is officially here in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. It's doing absolutely nothing. Like, we're talking next to no benefit right now. Even though Shin's got some mercenary benefits, pretty much the extent of it, through that unique ability, at the start of each mercenary ally's turn, they gain 5% critical chance, critical damage stacking for each stack of Soldier Fortune they have, which sounds great. That sounds amazing, right? But the problem is, I got no way of getting these Soldiers of Fortune buffs, or status effects, I should say, on the other mercenaries right now. So, really hard. I'd say right now the mercenary tag is non-existent. There's nothing connecting them, which of course is going to be Baylan Skoll down the road. So overall, this is again initial impressions. By no means am I saying this is the final thoughts I have. We're waiting for Baylan Skoll to really unlock the full potential. And again, I throw around the Padawan Obi-Wan comparison because it very much is so. We got a damage dealer. We're seeing glimpses of this good damage. And, we're kind of using it on a lot of wishy-washy teams. Like Padawan Obi-Wan, we try to master Luke, master Kenobi, Janet Riven, Janet Luke. And you're very much able to do that. It's usable. Question is it better than other characters that you can probably use? Probably not. But then you get the right team comp. And all of a sudden, this character is going to make a pretty bangalicious difference once with the Baylan Skoll. And let's go talk about that real quick. So inside of the Q&A developers did, besides the fact that the developers called me out with not being able to pronounce Shin Hati. Yeah, again, in my defense, I would say it one way. It said Shin Hati. And they're like, no, it's Shin Hati. And I say Shin Hati. It's like, no, it's Shin Hati. And then, again, it's been a year since I saw the show, and it's one of those names where the HA could sound like one thing and TI could sound like one other. Anyways, I got murdered. They got me good. But the other things that we have inside of this Q&A here with Shin outside of a Baylan Skoll team, will Shin and any of their mercs have another merc lead aside from Baylan's? So they said while there are other mercenaries that are leaders, only Baylan will currently have the ability to hand out Soldier of Fortune stacks. And this, I think, will address some of my concerns with Shin, where it felt like I had a hard time really pushing my stacks up to especially 30s, or yet alone the 20s. I think Baylan Skoll is going to help out. As I said, he's going to be handing out Soldier of Fortune. And as we had more mercenary leaders, you could expect them to have this capability. So right now, they even said to themselves, mercenaries, yeah, there's a tag. They're not doing anything with one another. Baylan's really going to connect them, being able to hand it out. Also, we talked about the stealth very briefly. The stealth was actually kind of nice, especially in the Seer Juno lineup, hiding all of your non-tanks under stealth. And then it's kind of a quasi-taunt, forcing Kylo Ren and Mass to taunt. It's probably going to force Baylan to taunt. It seems like Baylan's going to be heading down the tank direction, like a brutal tank. It's kind of what they were summarizing it a while ago. But then we got to talk about the last thing here, where they talk about in regards to Baylan's exclusive datacron. And I feel like, I don't know whether it's intentionally, inadvertently, but by basic deduction, we can kind of figure this out. Someone asked the question, does she have a god-tier datacron like the Great Mothers? I know you guys love those datacrons. Oh, you guys have had zero complaints about how powerful the Great Mothers are. But her marquee does not have a bespoke datacron. She does not. You know, we had one for Night Trooper. We had one for Great Mothers, in case you guys missed that. There's not one for Shin at the moment. But here's what they said. So although Shin does not have one datacron, Baylan's first run will. So I think you can kind of interpret this as the following. If you go pull up the current datacron sets that we have, they have expiration dates, right? And we just got ourselves a brand new set, which is going to expire on Christmas. So if you've been hating the Great Mothers and their datacron, well, guess what? Merry Christmas. They're going to pull it out of the game on December 25th. But as you know, we're waiting. We got about another month and a half until Unexpected Resurgence, arguably one of the craziest datacron sets we've had. A whole different conversation. That's going to be expiring on October 30th. So that's probably going to be our indication when we're going to see Baylan. So I'm guessing when Unexpected Resurgence starts leaving October 30th and we're going to start moving into a new datacron set, I think we're probably going to see Baylan sometime before the end of October, maybe early-ish November at the latest, something like that. That's my guess. I mean, I guess on the other hand, it could potentially be when Rambunctious Rage expires in December 25th, but that kind of seems like a long way. I think we're going to get Marok in probably the next 2-3 weeks or so, and then they're going to give you that little brief window to try to maybe get things up and running, and boom, Baylan Skoll's going to be around the corner. So that's a little tidbit. You kind of got to, kind of do a little bit of deduction, kind of guesstimation, a little bit of tinfoil hat when Baylan's going to come, but I think probably looking around sometime end of October, early November, if I had to guess, people. Overall, Shin Hati. Is she the character that drop and whale everything for? No. Unless you really want to get Baylan day one. Who knows how good it's going to be? I'm assuming Bo-Katan level. And I've been an overall pretty good fan of what Bo-Katan's been having in the game. Really like the idea of the mercenaries. Can't really appreciate it right now. Shin's got decent, plug-and-play unaligned force user, plug-and-play viability. Whether or not you should be using her in place of other characters, hard to say. The only reason why to rush this character at the moment is to get your Baylan Skoll up and running. And people, that's going to wrap it up for today's initial impression of Shin Hati. That's going to wrap it up for today's video, ladies and gentlemen. Early impressions, damage is good. Oh, you know it's only going to get better. Leave that like, comment down below. We'll find out what's going to be the next character's name that I mispronounced. I feel like the last character's name I really butchered was Bastila Shan. Back then, it took me a few times to finally grasp on. But don't worry. After being murdered by Capital Games and being called out, I think I got this one. Leave a like, comment down below, subscribe so you're not missing a thing. And more importantly, always remember how it's great to be in the Empire today.